Hello and welcome to another episode of Total War Breakdown. In today's episode, we will be continuing our analysis of the Roman faction for Rome Total War. And I think that's really all for the introduction, so let's get started. The first unit up for today is the Astari. The Astari has 7 attack points, 14 defense points, and 11 missile attack points. It costs 440 denarii to field and is the most basic military unit for Rome that can actually fight back. The Astari is by no means an absolutely great unit or even a good unit. It's just a unit. In single campaign, they are available almost immediately to Rome for recruitment and are the main military workforce in the early stages of the campaign. They are classified by most online players as Primarian class Roman units based on the historical timeline in which they are available for. In multiplayer low money battles, they are generally subpar compared to most other units and most definitely outclassed in high money battles. Any single Hastari will not really put up much of a fight, but they do benefit from being actual soldiers, so their usefulness and lifespan on the battlefield is much greater than the ones we've gone over already. However, if organized into squadrons, the Hastari can be a deadly group of units when handled correctly. Keep in mind that the Astari is classified as light infantry, even though they're pretty much like any other heavy infantry available for Rome. This is because the Astari is a very brittle unit, just like the rest of the Primarian class Roman units. So, how do you best utilize the Astari? It's best to use the Astari in groups or part of a larger group. Most players use Astari when creating a Primarian build army type when the Hastari are at the front of the main army. In this way, the Astari can be the first to engage the enemy. If set up on a checkerboard formation, the Astari can hold the enemy long enough for an outflanking maneuver by other better infantry. Keep in mind that Astari are very brittle units, and a good player must be able to work very fast in order to be successful with them. Another tactic you can use is to use the Astari and outflanking force to block enemy rear guards from interrupting the main body of your outflanking element. However, the downside is that the Astari will most likely not hold, so it's best to have a fallback plan in case things go south for your Astari, and in all likelihood, it probably will. My suggestion is to use the Astari in a combined arms approach and in low to medium money battles. This is because the Astari can hold their own amongst lower tier units and are cheap enough for the player to field a whole group of them, in which case they become a force to be reckoned with even amongst upper tier troops. However, in medium high to high money battles, I'm estimating right around 2,000 denarii or even greater, the Astari are outclassed by most other units that they would most likely encounter in that kind of setup. The next unit for today are the Principes. They have 7 attack points, 16 defense points, and 11 missile attack points. They cost 490 denarii to field and are pretty much the more durable version of the Astari. The Principes are very much the same as the Astari, aside from better armor value and better morale. My recommendations for the Principes will therefore be the same as the Astari. Use them in groups and ensure that they are always supported by nearby heavy infantry. They are not as brittle as the Hastari, but honestly, that's like saying that the crap I took this morning was better than the crap I took last night. Bottom line, don't rely solely on the Principes to accomplish tasks. All they are is that they will do their tasks better than any single Hastari would, but the key to a Primarian unit is combined arms and being able to think fast and work fast. The last unit for today is the Triarii. They have 7 attack points, 17 defense points, and cost 500 denarii to field. The Triarii are classified as a spearman unit, so they benefit from a significant attack bonus when fighting against cavalry. In fact, they are probably the best cavalry hunters for Rome. Their high defense allows them to survive frontal cavalry charges, and their long spears can decimate even the most well-armored enemy cavalry. They also move much like any other legion unit for Rome, so they are very maneuverable. Although they are technically the best spear unit for Rome, I do not recommend fielding them unless you're using a Primarian build army. This is because the Auxilia, not to be confused with the light Auxilia, do an equally good job against cavalry and at a lower cost. They do not do as much raw damage, but the cavalry bonus more than makes up for it. Triarii are what I consider to be the anti-cavalry overkill. Field Triarii when you have extra denarii to spend, or if you suspect that your opponent will be fielding cavalry aplenty and you need that extra damage buff from the Triarii. Another feature of the Triarii that makes them excellent units is the high morale. Again, it will keep them from routing when charged, sometimes holding even when charged from behind. However, I recommend that any player using a Triarii to keep them away from head-on infantry assaults, as they perform absolutely poorly against other infantry. Note that I said to keep them away from head-on infantry battles. This is because the Triarii makes a good outflanking element, especially when guarding against enemy cavalry. A strategy I personally like to employ when using spearmen is to use them to create a corridor for my own cavalry to slip through. Due to the high endurance ability of the Triarii, they accomplish this task much more easily, especially when intercepting enemy cavalry, so that your own cavalry have a free hand behind enemy lines in the initial hammer and anvil charge. Theoretically, this strategy can be used by a heavy infantry unit. However, I find that the Triarii accomplish this task with greater efficiency, as the enemy flanks are usually guarded by cavalry. Triarii make a very good cavalry swatter in this regard. Now, all three of these units share an interesting characteristic consistent with all the Legion type units, and it has something to do with their shield. However, I think I've said enough for today, so we will leave it at that for now. Now, for some of you might have noticed that I did not talk about a certain aspect of the Roman legions, the pilum. Rest assured that I did not forget about them, and I will talk about this feature once I get through all the Roman units that use this feature. But for now, since I'm a busy man, I will have to sign out here. In the next episode, we will talk about the post-Marian legionnaires as well as the Praetorian and the urban cohorts, where in the end I will go into detail about the Pila, and a special feature that all the Legion type units share, their shield bonus and placement.